Okay, in this clip we're going to be looking at the sixth of the factors in footprints raising attainment, my processing as I learn. How am I processing new information in each of my lessons? And again we have a scale here, two ends of the scale, and at this end of the scale we have the polarity of being able to make connections when we learn new information, being able to make connections. And at this end of the scale we have the polarity of being able to sequence new information and ideas. Let's start off by thinking about making connections when we learn information. Making connections when we learn new information is about being able to see what we're learning in relation to the big picture rather than getting fixed on a particular idea. It's about being able to look for patterns and connections between things, to be able to make links between different topics, to try suggestions and make predictions and come up with novel ways to solve problems. And it's very important that students learn how to make connections, because if they are going to develop higher order thinking skills, then they need to learn to relate what they know to bigger theories, bigger ideas, and to see patterns within data. At the other end of the polarity we have the ability to sequence new information. Now sequencing means putting things in the right order, linking them up together, organizing our thinking into a clear sequence, being able to follow a set process or method to solve a problem, working things out and showing workings in a step-by-step way so that our working is clear and logical and other people, like our teachers, can see the steps that we've taken. Without being able to sequence work clearly and thinking clearly, students' work is likely to be in a muddle, writing essays, get lower marks as a result. They may well misread instructions, they may jump to conclusions because they haven't gathered together all the facts carefully enough, and they may not communicate their work clearly so they can lead other people through their arguments. When we look at our optimal scores here, we see that both of the optimals for our core subjects in maths and science and English and the arts are quite close to the centre. In English and the arts, students need to both be able to make connections, and they also need to sequence new information. In maths and science, students need again to be able to do both of those things, but they certainly at GCSE level, year 10, key stage 4, they need to be able to sequence information clearly and effectively, and that's why the optimal for maths and science is a little bit further over onto the sequencing end of the scale than the connecting end of the scale down here. Okay, let's have a look at our student, Barney Walker here. So Barney has a baseline. This is his instinctive posture in terms of how he processes things when he's not being taught anything at all. His instinctive posture is pretty far down the making connections end of the scale. So Barney is someone who tends to think very connectively rather than sequentially. He tends to see patterns rather than to sequence things in logical linear orders. And we see that in English and chemistry Barney is using this instinctive connecting posture there. And this will no doubt give Barney the ability to be quite intuitive, to make connections between things. It may be something of a skill that he has, but the need for Barney is that Barney needs to pull that score closer to the optimals up here, both in English and chemistry. So Barney is going to have to work on sequencing information. So we go to our lad here who is good at sequencing, and Barney's going to need to commit to some of these strategies and behaviours if he's going to improve and pull this score towards the optimal. So which of these, Barney, do you want to have a go at this week? Which are going to be important? Maybe, Barney, you need to follow a set process and method to solve a problem rather than just always thinking that you've got a different way of doing things. So perhaps Barney is going to commit to that. Barney, there may be a motivation for committing to that, and your motivation for it will be down here in terms of the consequences if you don't. Here's the time at which it's going to be important to do this, Barney. So particularly when you're planning, explaining a sequence of actions, when you are studying a topic you find hard, carrying out instructions. So when do you need to do this, Barney? It's particularly important in this processing is the timing. There are particular times of learning activities when it's important that we sequence information well. And Barney, because you're so weak at this, in fact, let's see if you can commit to 2 of these rather than 1. So perhaps you can commit to solving problems, but also organising your thinking into clear sequencing. Can you commit to that? Let's take those, copy them. We're in week 7 now, and put those in here as goals. We might separate those out as separate goals, and we're going to write the lessons that you're going to commit to those in here. You're going to have those discussions with your teacher. Remember, Barney, that your teacher knows that you have this tendency and is going to be seeking to support you in making progress against these goals. So that's a conversation that you're going to have with your teacher, and again, the teacher's going to assess your progress and you're going to assess your progress because it's a real target for you. Next time we'll come back and we'll look at the progress which you have made against those goals. Similarly, we notice that Barney in maths has a very different posture, and this is important for us to recognise. It may be that we need to come back to this the following week if we feel that this is a real obstacle. Barney may want to talk to us about why he does something very different here, because here in maths he really is doing a lot of sequencing. It's very different from his baseline. So why, Barney, do you think you might be doing sequencing so much in maths? It may well be that Barney feels he is really lacking confidence in maths, and he feels the only way he can cope is by following very set processes and methods to solve problems. He doesn't have the same kind of confidence to be making connections. So perhaps Barney will need to some support in order to do that, and that may be another behaviour that we need to identify and put in his target booklet, perhaps for a following week. Remember, his maths teacher will have had feedback on the fact that Barney processes in this way in maths, and that it's very different from his baseline, and will be seeking to support Barney in doing that. So it's going to be a focus for the maths teacher in that lesson, and if we can create a better dialogue, a better conversation between what the teacher's trying to do and what Barney's trying to do and their needs, then we're going to accelerate Barney's progress in this particular area. At the end of raising attainment, at the end of the 10 weeks, we're going to come down here and we're going to see, Barney, do you feel you've made progress you feel you've made against your goals here? Where do you want to put your arrowhead? Hopefully Barney will feel he's made some progress. Hopefully this will encourage Barney to feel he's got some agency over his ability to improve his learning, and that it has actually helped him in his different subjects. That's the goal, raising attainment.